Good Wednesday, everyone. This is Emilia Gonzalez Avalos with Unidos, Minnesota, and my colleague, I think it should be the other hand, Carlos. Hi, Carlos.
Hi everyone. Happy Wednesday. It's Hump Day. Middle of
Yes, and it's super cold in Minnesota, but we have really warm news. FYI for everyone who is listening either via Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or the different social media platforms. This broadcast will be bilingual, so we will repeat everything in Spanish once we're finished with this part. So, Carlos, today, Wednesday, January 26th, an amazing day because last night, during this week, there was a ruling. In the past, the caucus process, that is sort of the assemblies that any and every party has uses as a process to be able to make shared decisions, build platforms, and align at the grassroots with the local and the different party units across the state from any and either party. Um, the Minnesota decided to allow parties to make their own decisions about who participates in the caucus. They have not changed the rules on who can vote, but they have made this rule accessible so that parties can decide who they want to see in their virtual floors or their floors when we arrive at some point at a time post pandemic. And last night, the Minnesota Democratic Farmer Labor, the DFL of Minnesota, Farmer and Labor or Labor and Farmer. But anyways, it's just this very peculiar name of the Minnesota Democratic Party has passed their resolution or have approved the resolution that came from 2018, where folks were asking people that they could participate in caucuses regardless of immigration status. Now, let's be very clear. The ruling allows parties to make decisions, and the Minnesota Democratic Party yesterday, through their process, passed a resolution or passed the measure. I don't know what's the name of the inside game because I couldn't be part of the inside for 20 years, so I don't know the right names. But basically, folks that have been formerly incarcerated and non-citizens can now have access to the Democratic Party caucus. Now, the ruling means that every party gets to make a decision. We don't know if the Green Party will do that. We don't know if the Republican Party do that. We don't know if there's any other party who's going to do that. But for now, the Democrats have made this change, and that means that formerly incarcerated folks and people, regardless of immigration status, non-citizens, that this not only is undocumented people, let's be very clear. It's not only undocumented people, it's refugees, it's people with withholding of removals, it's people with U visa, it's legal permanent residents, it's people in asylum. Non-citizens in Minnesota can now participate in the Democratic Party's caucusing process. So that's huge news for our organization because we're a mixed status sort of organization. And Carlos, tell us more. Why should we be excited about this?
Yeah, I mean it's a huge opportunity, right? Folks who have been historically have been left out of the process are now allowed to participate in it, right? And so it's super exciting. Isn't it really you know, it's exciting news, but it's what we do next that matters, right? So I guess the big thing is we're informing y'all right now, but I would encourage you to inform others as well. Share this video, share the news with folks. This is a very good step forward for our folks, and I think I've been spending this whole week phone banking, having conversations with people on the phone. And a lot of parents have answered the phone, and they'll answer and they'll hear me talk about this process that they don't really understand. And then when we get to the point of asking them, are you going to this has always been a block for our people to participate, right? So now we can finally go back to those folks and call them again and let them know that they can participate in this process, and that their voice will be heard, right? Along with not just being able to participate as delegates, but also having folks are now able to as well add their own resolutions to this process as well. So yeah, no, it's huge news. We're really, really excited about it, and we can't wait to get there, I guess.
That's right. And it is, so now we have to repeat all of this en español, ¿verdad, Carlos? So, la noticia de hoy, a la gente que nos está escuchando a través de nuestras plataformas sociales, es que el estado de Minnesota ha dictaminado que todos los partidos ahora pueden tomar decisiones acerca de quién participa en sus asambleas. Entonces, antes, esta regla quería decir que solamente la gente que era elegible para votar podía participar en las asambleas partidistas. Esta determinación ahora le da a los partidos la discreción de que ellos mismos decidan quién puede participar en su proceso interno, de cómo toman decisiones en sus plataformas, de cuáles son los delegados, etcétera. Y en esta ocasión, el Partido Demócrata ha decidido pasar anoche una medida en donde permite a que todas las personas, incluyendo las personas que han sido encarceladas y que han saldado su deuda con la sociedad, y también las personas que no son ciudadanas todavía, entonces los residentes, las personas con visa U, las personas con DACA, las personas que son asiliadas o que tienen algún tipo de permiso de trabajo, pero no son ciudadanos todavía, todas estas personas, incluyendo la gente con TPS, puede ahora tener acceso a participar y a poder ser delegado en las asambleas llamadas caucus. So, esto quiere decir que es un paso más adelante para poder tener el poder de votar en algún día y de seguir influenciando las plataformas, las decisiones y hacer a estos candidatos responsables que nunca se tenían que preocupar por nosotros porque decían, no, ni votan, no pueden votar, pero ahora vamos a poder ser delegados. ¿Y qué quiere decir eso? Que si usted participa en los caucuses y usted se postula como delegado, usted puede decidir quién es el endorsado de ese partido para todas las carreras electorales. Esto quiere decir para concejales, para personas que nos representan en las mesas de las escuelas, para senadores estatales, para miembros de la Casa de Representantes estatal, también la federal, también para el presidente, también para también para gobernador, attorney general, todas estas diferentes oficinas. El Partido Demócrata de Minnesota está diciendo, vamos a abrir la puerta a todas las personas que tengan 18 años o más y que no importa que hayan sido en algún momento encarceladas y que hayan saldado su deuda con la sociedad o no importa su estatus migratorio, queremos que estas personas tengan acceso a nuestro proceso de tomar decisiones. Y pues bueno, para nosotros estamos esperando, ¿verdad?, que los demás partidos, porque el Partido Demócrata no es el único, vamos a ver qué dice el Partido Republicano en Minnesota, van a poder decidir, ¿van a dar chance o no? El Partido Verde, ¿van a dar chance o no? El partido, no sé, el partido de la marihuana, porque también hay en Minnesota, ¿van a dar chance o no? El Verde, ¿verdad? Ya hablamos del Partido Verde, creo que hay también un partido del trabajo, por ahí algunos otros partidos más pequeños, ¿van a dar chance o no? El Partido Demócrata decidió ayer por la noche y esta mañana se hizo una conferencia de prensa para anunciarlo en grande. Tenemos una grabación de esa conferencia de prensa que vamos a dejar después de nuestro mensaje, pero de hoy, ahorita, ¿por qué esto es importante? Bueno, porque si usted quiere moverse con Unidos Minnesota y ser un delegado con nuestra plataforma, le vamos a pedir que se mueva con un bloque organizado que defienda las licencias, que defienda el Minnesota Dream Act, que busque seguro médico para todos. Todas estos temas que hemos peleado y que hemos abogado tanto en el gobierno estatal como en el gobierno federal, es la plataforma que usted va a traer a estos lugares. Y entonces, cuando usted se convierta en delegado, usted decide quiénes van a ser los endorsados para estas elecciones del 2022. Carlos, cuéntanos cómo la gente se puede involucrar en este gran paso.
Ya, pues mándenos un mensaje o dejen su comentario y nosotros nos podemos poner en contacto con ustedes. También hemos estado pues aquí bien ocupados ya todo el día en los teléfonos haciéndole llamada a nuestra gente. Así que si le llega una llamada de nosotros, contéstela, hable con nosotros y pues como dice Emilia, ¿verdad? Estamos aquí para apoyarlos. Este es un gran momento, una gran oportunidad en donde nosotros podemos empujar hacia adelante los temas que nos importan y nos afectan a nosotros. Y pues ya, estamos aquí pues para ayudarles en el proceso, para hacerlo juntos, ¿no? Unidos, ¿verdad? Como una comunidad. Y pues sí, ya.
Así es. Y pues bueno, les vamos a dejar con la conferencia de prensa que se sostuvo hoy por la mañana. Por favor, denle like, por favor, compártala. Háganos preguntas, mándenos mensajes si usted quiere participar en estas asambleas. Yo voy a participar. Yo nunca he votado en mi vida. Yo siempre trabajo con Carlos y Carlos me manda su fotito de su boleta. A veces me deja ponerme su sticker para sentirme que puedo votar. Carlos sí puede votar. Yo nunca he votado. Este año por primera vez voy a participar en una asamblea. Voy a organizar a mis vecinas, que son mis compas, para poder movernos juntas con poder en nuestra asamblea del distrito 55, para que se vayan sabiendo, yo vivo en el distrito 55, y nosotras vamos a poder decidir en muchas carreras y en la plataforma de nuestra unidad del partido. Entonces sería mover resoluciones pro inmigrantes, que las licencias, que el DREAM Act, que el clima, que necesitamos estudios étnicos, que necesitamos 100% energía limpia y renovable para tal fecha, que necesitamos que a nuestros trabajadores esenciales los protejan, que necesitamos que puedan ajustar leyes para prevenir el robo de salario en los lugares de trabajo. Todas estas cosas es lo que vamos a traer a un distrito, ¿verdad? Entonces, déjenos saber, porque estamos ahorita haciendo entrenamientos y teniendo conversaciones por teléfono para que usted participe y se mueva junto con todos nosotros como un bloque unidos y fuerte. Fechas. ¿Cuál es el día del caucus? ¿Hasta qué día tienen para registrarse o para informarse, para echarles la mano para eso, Carlos?
Sí, tienen hasta el día 1 de febrero, que es el próximo martes a las 9 de la noche, va a ser cuando se van a terminar de aceptar los formularios en donde la gente se está inscribiendo para ser delegados. Llámenos, les podemos ayudar. Hay varias maneras en cómo lo pueden llenar. Lo pueden hacer electrónicamente, lo pueden imprimir, llenarlo y luego ir a entregarlo. Ahí está, pues un infographic, ¿verdad? Puede ir a visitar la página del DFL, buscar su location por medio de la herramienta que ellos tienen ahí, y luego le da la información en dónde va a ser el lugar donde lo pueden entregar, si ese es su plan, o le da el correo electrónico de la persona que se está encargando en recibir los formularios en su área específicamente.
Así es, y pues bueno, ¿hay algún teléfono, Carlos, donde nos puedan llamar para recibir más información o si quieren participar con el bloque de Unidos de Minnesota?
Me pueden llamar a mí. Estoy tomando aquí pues llamadas todo el día. Mi número es el 651-361-0026. Me pueden llamar, háganme preguntas. Estoy aquí preparado para servirles, ¿verdad? Contestarle cualquier pregunta que tengan, cualquier duda. Y no se preocupen, podemos hacer esto juntos. No estamos solos o no están solos en el proceso. Estamos todos juntos, ¿verdad? Entonces es algo nuevo, es algo muy emocionante. Entonces hay que hacerlo, hay que tomar la oportunidad y trabajar juntos como comunidad y ya, ahí está.
Excelente. ¿Hay algo más que quieras agregar, Carlos?
Pues ya, pues eso mismo, ¿verdad? De que ahora que se está dando la oportunidad es para que nosotros tomemos acción, es para que nosotros nos juntemos y estemos presentes, ¿verdad? Porque como ahorita dijo Emilia, el número que llegue más grande a esas convenciones va a ser el número de gente que va a decidir cuál candidato va a recibir todo el apoyo de un partido, es decir, voluntarios, es decir, dinero, es decir, vaya, todo lo que construye una campaña se da en ese momento. Y nosotros tenemos la oportunidad ahora de decidir, de estar presente y decidir cuál dato reciba ese endorso. So, gran oportunidad, los invitamos a estar en llamada o mensajito, como quieran comunicarse, pero pues aquí estamos para servirles.
Así es, y pues bueno, les recuerdo a las personas del Distrito 50, gente de Richfield y de Bloomington, si quieres ser parte del caucus, yo soy tu vecina, mándame mensaje, te voy a dar mi número porque necesito organizar personas porque si no Carlos me va a hacer responsable. Mándame un mensaje, mi número es 612-708-9633. Compañeros, vecinos del Distrito 50, tenemos que llegar hasta con tambora, ¿verdad? Por la puerta grande, a todos los que siempre hemos visto los caucuses desde la ventana o desde la puerta, o ahí nos encargan la mesa de los flyers, ¿verdad? Que siempre nos ha tocado a los que no podemos votar. Ahora sí, o que tengo que andar persiguiendo, ¿verdad? Al jefe de la unidad para que me dé mi pase, nomás mi pase para ver. Ahora sí, vamos a entrar, vamos a hacer lo que tenemos que hacer, vamos a traer nuestros temas, nuestras prioridades desde la calle, desde nuestras comunidades, a la mesa de discusión de las prioridades del partido. Entonces lo invito a que me llame, compañeras, vecinas del Distrito 50, échenos una llamada. Y pues bueno, el número de Carlos ahí está en su pantalla, el mío también está en su pantalla. Lo invitamos a que participes en una elección súper importante. Acuérdense que no nada más estamos eligiendo personas que nos representen. La democracia no nomás se hace, el trabajo no nomás se hace nomás con ir a votar. Se hacen los otros 364 días en donde creamos plataformas, organizamos a nuestras comunidades, peleamos por las cosas. Doña Blanca, mándale un mensaje. Usted yo le iba a llamar para que fuera de mis 20, pero le doy chance a Carlos de que se lleve una para sus 20, Carlos. Mándale, Blanquita, un mensaje a Carlos para que te ayude a ver cómo a llenar tu forma y todo eso para que estés bien lista para tu caucus allá en Ocio. Eso, en Ocio va a llegar van a llegar los delegados. Y como le decía, esta información, este acceso, la lucha pues se lleva todos los días, no solamente el día de la votación. Y sabemos que para muchas personas es una barrera porque trabajamos mucho, a veces tenemos de 2 a 3 trabajos, que la familia, que los hijos, pero le prometo que esas 2 horas a veces, que tenemos, que podemos tomar un compromiso para involucrarnos como en procesos como estos son muy importantes, van en un camino grande. Es una llamada bien especial, sobre todo para las personas que viven en Brooklyn Park, en Brooklyn Center, la gente que vive en Plymouth, la gente que vive en el distrito de Shakopee, Jordan, por allá, la gente que vivimos en Hennepin, que tenemos buenos representantes, pues es muy bueno que voten con nosotros, trabajen con nosotros, pero la gente que vive ya más afuera en las faldas de la ciudad, en las zonas rurales, es importante que se involucren porque a veces no tenemos tan buenos representantes, ¿no? La congresista Angie Craig puede hacer mejor, el congresista Dean Phillips puede hacer mejor. ¿Y qué más? Que tenerlo usted de delegado para que le tenga que llamar y decir, oh, ¿me vas a endorsar este año? Pues sí, ahora ríndeme cuentas, ¿verdad? ¿Qué hiciste en el Congreso? ¿Cómo peleaste por mí en el Congreso para que yo te pueda dar mi voto de delegado? ¿Qué tal, entonces, pues bueno, lo invitamos, ahí están nuestros teléfonos, tiene hasta el 1 de enero para participar y para poderles dar la información. Estamos muy, muy emocionados de estas oportunidades. Estamos tenemos esperanza, ¿verdad? De que tenemos una pequeña victoria más, pero que es una victoria importante. Y pues bueno, los dejamos con la grabación de esta mañana de la conferencia de prensa con los abogados que defendieron el litigio, con el jefe del Partido Demócrata y algunos otros compas de la lucha, como el director del Minnesota Freedom Fund, etcétera, para que pues nos den su perspectiva. Es una conferencia de prensa en inglés. Denos chance, estamos tratando de ver cómo hacer la traducción como escrita antes de procesar los videos, pero pues tenemos ahorita mucho en nuestra mesa, solo invitamos a que la vea Y pues seguimos en la lucha, ya tiene los teléfonos, nos estamos viendo pronto. Va a escuchar mucho de nosotros en las próximas semanas y mucho del caucus, ¿verdad, Carlos?
Sí.
Bien, pues entonces los dejamos, que pase una buena tarde, que recoja a sus hijos del bus o del Zoom con mucho entusiasmo. Nos estamos viendo, cuídese y cuídese a su comunidad. Ya no se habla español. Muchas gracias y buenas tardes.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. We're going to get started here now, and we really appreciate everyone here. It's obviously a busy day, lots of press conferences, we understand that. So let's just jump right into it. I want to thank you all for joining us today for this important announcement. I'm joined here today by Eliza Darris, Emilia Gonzalez-Avalos, and lawyers who were instrumental in court proceedings, which we'll talk about in a moment. Rachel Kitsy Collins from Lockridge, Grindle, and Nowen, who represented the Minnesota DFL, and Simon Troutman, who represented Noah McCourt in his role as an individual plaintiff. Last evening, the Minnesota DFL State Central Committee met and unanimously passed one of the most significant reforms in our party's 77-year history, a reform that has been nearly 6 years in the making. And just by way of background, let me tell you how we got here. In 2016, I was out canvassing with a young Latina organizer who told me how hard she was working to turn out the vote, despite the fact that she could not vote herself as a dreamer. And upon further conversation, she told me how much she wanted to be a delegate to the convention, but could not because of our party rules. Now, I promised her at that point on the spot that I would change that. And in 2018, I authored a resolution which was unanimously passed by the DFL State Convention in Rochester to allow individuals who were not eligible to vote to fully participate in our party process. This includes dreamers, non-citizens, felons who are still on paper and have not had their voting rights restored, and many others. Now, unfortunately, my enthusiasm with the passage of this resolution was dampened in later months when we found out that there were state statutes that govern who could fully participate in our party. Now, we worked legislative angles for many months only to discover there was no support from Republicans for making changes to these statutes. And so accordingly, in 2020, the DFL party filed a lawsuit challenging the Minnesota laws which unconstitutionally limited voting in the precinct caucuses to eligible voters, thereby restricting the rights of dreamers and individuals who have not been fully restored to their civil rights, many of whom are dedicated members of the DFL party, to fully participate in the caucuses. And while we lost that decision in the lower courts, we appealed to the Minnesota Court of Appeals, along with an individual plaintiff and longtime friend, Noah McCourt, whose lawyer, Simon Troutman, is here with us today. Now, just a few weeks ago, on January 3rd, 2022, the Minnesota Court of Appeals came to a decision on our appeal. And while they did not specifically address the constitutionality of the statute, they did clarify two critical areas that clear the way for the DFL party to open participation in the precinct caucuses to all party members, regardless of whether they are eligible to vote. First, the court made clear that the provisions of Minnesota law that punish voting by non-eligible voters do not apply to caucuses. Specifically, the court found that the criminal penalties in those Minnesota statutes, which provide that it is a felony to vote illegally, only apply to voting in elections, not in caucuses. And so accordingly, the DFL may extend an invitation to non-eligible voters to vote and be elected delegates and officers at the precinct caucus without subjecting them to risk of criminal prosecution. Second, the court concluded that the only enforcement power lies with the party themselves and caucus goers, who may vote on whether or not someone is eligible to participate in our party caucuses. So in other words, the party gets to decide who can participate, vote, and be elected a delegate or officer at the caucuses. And the only group that gets to decide whether a particular individual can participate is the other caucus goers vis-a-vis our party rules. So these two conclusions create a legal safe harbor for the Minnesota DFL to broadly open participation in the precinct caucuses, which means after 6 long years, our party can finally live its values. As a party that supports a pathway to citizenship for the millions of dreamers and supports restoring voting rights to millions of ex-felons, this is a huge step in the right direction. Our party recognizes that we must invite all party members to participate at every level of our caucus and convention process so that all members may have the opportunity to endorse candidates, to run and select party leadership, to introduce resolutions, and vote on matters such as a party platform and our action agenda. I am pleased to announce that our party passed this last night unanimously, and that our party is going to be opening up our doors to thousands of Minnesotans, thousands of people in this state who want to participate in our precinct caucuses 6 days from today. With that, I'm going to now ask Simon Troutman, who is a lawyer for individual plaintiff Noah McCourt, to say a few words. Simon?
Thank you, Chairman Martin, and thank you everybody for joining us this morning. And I also want to say a special thank you and recognition of my colleague, Amrita Singh, who worked really hard on this case, and also Rachel Kitsy Collins and her team members who represented the DFL, and their arguments were brilliant and compelling and really instrumental to rolling back what frankly are some of the most restrictive voting rights laws in the country. And what I mean by that is I'm not aware of any other state that not only restricted voting rights for people who are on probation, but also restricted their ability to organize politically and be a delegate in a political party, which means not just selecting the candidate, but also advocating for the platform, which in addition to the party feeling was wholly unconstitutional because of their rights. Noah McCourt also said, and when he came to me with this case, said he asked the question, he said, could I go to jail? Could I violate my probation if I advocated for what I believed in, if I fought for this party platform? And the answer was, it's not clear. The law says you can't, and the law is not clear on what the penalties might be. And so I regret that Mr. McCourt can't be with us, but I just want to also acknowledge his incredible courage and internal toughness and integrity to say, I don't want to violate the law, and I think the law is wrong. And so what we were able to clarify with the courts, what the courts clarified is, one, Mr. McCourt won't face a criminal penalty for exercising his First Amendment rights inside the party. And two, the government can't assess a penalty to him, a civil penalty, which also is incredibly important. And third, they also found for the first time that the courts found for the first time that the threat of government action, if the government threatens to take action, that's enough to take away your speech rights. And so we're really grateful for the party's leadership. I'm grateful for Noah McCourt. As a candidate for county attorney who's looking for delegates, I'm really grateful that everybody who wants to participate in our political process, or more people can than could before. And so thank you again to the party and to all the attorneys that worked on this. But we have more rights for more people. And this is a great day for Mr. McCourt, but it's also a great day for the party. And it's a great day for everybody who cares about the Constitution, everybody who thinks the First Amendment's important, and that people should have the right to organize to say what the government should or shouldn't be.
Thank you so much, Simon. I greatly appreciate those words. Next up is Eliezer Darris, who has been, I think, one of the most instrumental young leaders fighting for the restoration of civil rights for not only ex-felons, but many members of our community. He's been on the front lines, standing up for and helping to fight for civil rights of all kinds, including voting rights restoration. And at this point, it's my honor to introduce Eliezer Darris, who is a co-executive director of the Minnesota Freedom Fund. Eliezer.
Thank you so much, Ken Martin. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak on. This is a historic day. This is a day that has, for me, been a really long time in the making. I think despite everything, all of the accolades, all of the work, the struggle, the boots on the ground, the door knocking, canvassing, and in 15, 20-degree weather, the helping candidates get their voices out. Despite everything that I have done, including paying taxes, abiding by all the rules, regulations, restrictions, guidelines created by policy and lawmakers, despite all of that, I have never been able to participate in the process of helping to elect who's going to represent my voice, whether that is who's going to be the one that's helping to make sure the potholes get filled in my community, whether or not we have adequate parks and recreation access for the youth within my community, who's going to be representative on the school board for the young people within my community, who's going to help to push the laws that are enforced within I have been unable to cast any type of ballot in any way, shape, or form for any of that for all of the years that I've been out, because I am on felony probation. And so while I am on the forefront of helping to push forward democracy in some of the most far-flung places within our communities that other people have oftentimes overlooked, I've been there. I haven't been able to hold that little red sticker that says I voted. I haven't been able to pass forth any document at a caucus or a convention to say, I attest to this person being a sound person to represent my voice and to represent the views of what I believe is going to be a healthy and productive community for me to live in. And so this is a really historic day. I have been part and parcel on the outer skirts of society. This right here makes democracy just that much more accessible to me, just that much more closer to being able to cast the ballot. Now, we also know that the state Supreme Court right now has under advisement a lawsuit. I'm party to that lawsuit to open up overall access to voting for people who are currently on felony probation or parole. Again, we are out here. We're your neighbors, right? We are parents, right? We are the people who are servicing your vehicle. We are executives at the executive level. We are all over society, and yet we are almost invisible members of society because we can't fully participate in this democratic experience that we are all currently building and growing out together. Some of us are able to participate more fully than others, and I believe that that is fundamentally wrong. And I'm glad that the courts also recognize and agree with the DFL party and agree certainly with NOAA. NOAA is very brave, has been on the forefront of so many different critical legal reforms in our state and has actually made the state significantly better. I'm glad that the court sided with opening up access to democracy now. And I hope that both parties make the determination to open up access to taking part in this democratic experiment that we are all co-building together. And so I would say for any of my brothers or sisters who are out there who are on felony probation and parole, get involved in a caucus. Go to the caucus, go to sign up, whether you go to the RNC side or whether you go to the DFL side, go and sign up to participate in caucus. You're going to feel a little uncomfortable, but there's going to be plenty of people there who will be able to answer questions for you and tell them you want to be a delegate. Get to the convention and get to that floor and pass a vote for who do you want to represent your voice. Go and do it today. Go and do it now. You have until February 1st. Go and make it happen. I'm already going to be attending the caucus. I'm already signed up. I want all of you all who are out right now to go and get signed up as well.
Thank you so much, Eliza. I greatly appreciate that. Our next speaker is also no stranger to fighting for civil rights for not just her community, but for thousands of Minnesotans who live in the shadows. Emilia Gonzalez-Avalos, who is the Executive Director of Unidos, Minnesota. Emilia?
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Emilia Gonzalez-Avalos. As you said, I am the Executive Director of Unidos, Minnesota. We are a Latino-based statewide organization building power for social, racial, and economic justice. And I was undocumented for over 20 years, and now as a permanent resident, I cannot vote. And before this ruling, I was ineligible to caucus. For way too long, decisions about our lives, our destinies, and our communities have been made without us. Restoring the vote and immigration reform are two of the most important legislative proposals of our times. And while these two measures continue to be stuck at the federal level, and with that, restoration of voting rights and pathways to citizenship remain in limbo, this expansion ruling is a critical down payment towards a sizable democracy that meets the promises of those who have fought and continue to fight for equality across our country. As John Lewis once said, a democracy cannot thrive where power remains unchecked and justice is reserved for a selected few. For the progressive movement, these steps towards the right direction means that the time undocumented Minnesotans 18 and over, and who have for many years built a powerful pro-immigrant voter bloc, are bringing that power from the streets and from the community into a caucus near you. The times for many of us to watch our issues being prioritized or not from a window or while we man tables in hallways and corridors away from the action are over. I commend the legal team, the Plainfits, for defending this piece tooth and nail, and the leadership of the Minnesota Democratic Farmer and Labor Party for defending our democracy in the best way we possibly can, by opening the front door to historically excluded neighbors, making sure that those affected by the issues in our platforms have a say in the process and can grasp power to truly hold our own side accountable to our shared vision. I am grateful for every single official who supported this important resolution in 2018. From Party Chairman Ken Martin to our friends and partners of Faith in Minnesota, their organizer Catalina Morales, our community leaders like Jovita Morales and Marlene Rojas, who have organized the Latino vote and disciplined hope that one day we will have the right alignment to pass life-changing pro-immigrant legislature in Minnesota. And as I mentioned before, I have been in this country for over 2 decades. Therefore, I have never voted. But like many of my peers and colleagues at Unidos, we know the connection of political power and our ability to pass people-powered, affirming policies at all levels of government. As the organization with the largest Latino GOTV operation in the state, we are beyond excited about the possibilities of 2022. Today is a good day to be progressive and to be Minnesotan. And this year, Unidos we caucus, and one day, Unidos we will vote. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Emilia.